Okay, so there's good things and bad things about being a monopoly. One of the interesting things about being a monopoly is that that whole demand curve belongs to you. People say, oh, the monopoly can charge any price they want. Well, no, because if they charge too high a price, I'm not buying it, right? If De Beers says, look, every diamond is $100,000, Kim Kardashian's going to buy all the diamonds, and nobody else is going to be buying diamonds, right? Taylor Swift might buy a few diamonds. But most of us will never buy a diamond again if diamonds are $100,000. They can't charge whatever they want. They still have to charge based on what the demand curve says. But now they own the whole demand curve. So they can pick where they want to be on the demand curve. It's not quite as good as being able to charge whatever price you want. You have to pick a point on the demand curve and be there. Okay? So if I want to sell more, if I'm a monopoly and I want to sell a higher quantity, I'm going to have to lower the price because I'm on this demand curve, and demand curves slope down, and if I want more people to buy my product, I have to offer them a lower price, even if I'm a monopoly. If NV Energy raises its energy prices, people put more insulation in their houses and they turn the thermostat up and they use less power. If NV Energy were to make electricity really cheap, we'd use more electricity, right? NV Energy still has to pay attention to what's on that demand curve, okay? And most companies, and again, there's ways around this, and we'll talk about that, but for now, if you're sitting at a point on the demand curve, everybody's paying the same price, right? That's the whole thing about the demand curve. Everybody's paying the same price. Every homeowner in Las Vegas pays the same amount per kilowatt hour for electricity. So when NV Energy raises or lowers the price, they raise or lower it for everybody, not just for some people. So here's an example. And this isn't a monopoly example, but it's a demand curve example. So you're a furniture store, and you're selling 5 sofas a day, and you're charging $1,000 a sofa. Okay? You want to sell 6 sofas a day, and you discover you have to lower the price to $900 a sofa. Right? But you have to lower that for everybody. Let's think this through. If I know that the first 5 people who walk into your store are going to have to pay $1,000, and the 6th person is going to pay $900, guess what? Yeah, I'm waiting outside your store for 5 fools to walk in, right? And nobody may walk in and buy a sofa. Everybody's going to wait to be the $900 person because they don't want to be the $1,000 person. So all of us are standing outside. You're not selling anything. You've got to lower the price on all 6 sofas. So before we were selling 5 sofas for $1,000 a piece, we were generating $5,000 a day in sofas. Now we're selling 6, but we're selling them for $900 a piece. That's only $5,400. So we have an economist's word for this, which is marginal revenue. How much revenue did I get from selling that extra sofa? And the answer is, even though I sold that sofa for $900, I really only got $400 for it. Does everybody see that? I went from $5,000 to $5,400 in revenue, right? I went from $5,000 to $5,400. So really, even though the selling price of that sofa was $900, I only made $400. My marginal revenue was $400 on a sofa with a price of $900. And that's because I had to lower the price of all the sofas. We got that? So the marginal revenue is always going to be lower than the price now. In perfect competition for farmers, marginal revenue and price were the same thing. Now, marginal revenue is always going to be lower than the price because to sell more, I have to lower the price of everything I'm selling. If you're a farmer, you're such a small part of the world, you can sell everything you grow at the same price. But most businesses can't do that. They've got to lower their prices to sell more, and they've got to lower their prices on all of it, because otherwise we're waiting to get that low price. Okay, so there's a math thing here. If our demand curve is a nice straight line like this one, so we have a nice straight line demand curve. Nice straight line demand curve. The marginal revenue curve will fall twice as fast. Marginal revenue will fall twice as fast as demand, and I can draw a new marginal revenue curve that's dropping twice as fast. Now, you're saying, why 2 times? Well, I put a little integral symbol up there. It really doesn't have anything to do with integrals. It has to do with derivatives, but the integral sign looks cooler. When you become an econ major, one of the great joys of your life will be that you will take a class where they go through the math of why it falls 2 times faster. And it might be calculus. Okay, so take this graph, the demand and marginal revenue lines, and add a marginal cost line. Okay? So remember that marginal cost is really the supply curve. So I have a supply curve and a demand curve, but I also now have a marginal revenue curve, which is different than the demand curve. It falls twice as fast. All right? Now, how do I maximize my profits? Well, I maximize my profits by setting marginal cost equal to marginal revenue. We remember this hopefully from perfect competition. Where does marginal cost equal marginal revenue? The answer in our graph is right here. Now you're saying that point's in the middle of nowhere, and yes, it is. Okay? So we find, this is steps. So step number 1 is find where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. If I go straight down from that point, that tells me what quantity I should produce. So marginal revenue equals marginal cost shows me the profit maximizing quantity to produce. You got that? You wrote that down? Where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, that will be the profit maximizing quantity. From there, I go up to the demand curve and across, and that's the price I should charge. So by finding where marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal, I find the quantity that maximizes my profits, and I can go up to the demand curve then and find the price that I sell that quantity for. Okay? So life again is about finding where marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal. You should notice, just looking at this, and we'll redraw it here in a second to make this more clear. But where would we be if we weren't a monopoly? If this were real supply and demand, and there were lots of buyers and lots of sellers? Well, we'd be right here, yes? X marks the spot. That's where we should be. In economists' mind, that's where we should be. What's the monopoly going to do? The monopoly is going to charge a higher price than we'd like them to, and they're going to produce a smaller quantity than we'd like them to, because that's the place where they make the most money. Okay? Now, we can also talk about monopoly and elasticity here. That marginal revenue curve is dropping twice as fast, right? It's dropping twice as fast. So it's going to hit bottom here at the midpoint on the demand curve, right? That's the midpoint. Well, what do we know about that midpoint? What do we know about that midpoint? Well, it has an elasticity of demand equal to 1. And up here, I'm in the elastic world, and below, I'm in inelastic. Where's the monopoly going to be? Well, the monopoly is always going to be up here, because MC has to equal MR. That's always going to be over here. Monopolies are always going to face elastic demand curves. They're always going to price in the elastic portion of their demand. Is that exciting? So monopolies always have an elasticity greater than 1. Ooh, so exciting. All right. So again, why is monopoly bad? What we want to do is, by the end of this section, be able to say, look, monopoly is bad because 1, 2, 3, 4, these things. Okay? Where we start this discussion is how the monopoly uses their monopoly power. This is where they should be, right? Where supply and demand cross, where the marginal cost curve crosses the demand curve. That's optimal. That's competition. Competition would put us there. The monopoly knows that things that are scarce are then valuable. And the more scarce I make something, the more valuable it becomes. So what am I going to do? I'm going to price here. I'm going to put my quantity here where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And I'm going to produce this quantity right here. I'm going to shrink how much I produce. I'm going to artificially create scarcity. And when my product becomes more scarce, it becomes more valuable, and I can raise the price. So monopolists create this artificial scarcity, which lets them raise their price. So already when somebody says to you, hey, monopoly bad, why? Well, they're going to produce a smaller quantity and charge a higher price. Okay? So it's two easy things to see. Now you're saying, oh, if you have heard, bad businesses in the past, you might have heard about a company called Enron. And Enron was an energy company. Enron, energy. They, on a normal day in the summer in the United States, about 3% of the electrical generating capacity is turned off for them to do maintenance. So you have these power plants that are out there, and power plants occasionally have to shut down for maintenance. And at any one time, about 3% of the U.S. power grid is shut down for maintenance. Enron, and this is illegal, but a lot of stuff they did was illegal. Enron took care of the western part of the United States, where we are, and they magically arranged for 10% of the power generating capacity to be offline in the hottest part of the summer. Now, electrical power isn't priced based on kind of the average cost of producing it. It's based on the price of the most expensive power we produce. So basically what you're getting in your house, that price is the price of the expensive power. That summer, people in San Francisco saw their power bills double and triple compared to what they'd normally been. And it happened because Enron got these power plants to shut down, which made power more scarce, which means the utilities had to pay more for it. They passed that on to the consumer, and people's bills were doubling and tripling. Okay? If you don't believe that monopolies do this, there's a report from the state of California on all the illegal stuff that Enron did to get scarcity, to cut back on electrical power generation so that the price would skyrocket and they would make a ton of money. Okay? This is an actual behavior, and people actually do this. OPEC does this. When the oil countries want to raise the price of oil, they cut back production, the price of oil goes up. As I speak to you, the price of oil is really low, and that's because they're trying to drive some folks out, and we'll talk about that a few videos from now.